لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله الذي أعوذ بالله من الشيطان العليم الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا والله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا وحجة الله حي على السلام حي على السلام حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على حي بالعمل حي على حي بالعمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي كان موجودا قبل حدوث الأشياء ويبقى بعد فناء الأشياء، تفرد بالأولية والقدم ووسم كل شيء ما عداه بالفناء والعدم، كما قال عز الشان كل شيء خالق ذو وجه وكل نفس ذائقة الموت، وقال كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. سبحان من لا يخفى عليه اختلاف النيات ولا يعزب عنه ما سلفات في الخلوات. سبحان الله الذي منه خلقة العباد وإليه المعاد. من يعمل مثقال ذرة خير يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شر يره. نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو الملك الذي لا ينازع في ملكه ولا يغاض في حكمه، يعذب من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء ويرحم من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء. تعظيمه المسيئين عدل وفوض تفضل. ونشهد أن محمدا سيد المرسلين وخير المبشرين والمنذرين صلى الله عليه وآله الهداة المهديين. الراكب سفينتهم نجا واهتدى ومن تخلف عنها ضل فورقا. وهوى أوصيكم عباد الله بالاعتصام بالتقوى فإنه حبل متين وعروة وثقى. وقال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق ووصف القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسألونك ماذا ينفقون قل ما أنفقتم من خير فللوالدين والأقربين واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل وما تفعلوا من خير فإن الله به عليم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I begin by advising myself and all of you to adopt the taqwa of Allah as is the best of provisions. The verse that I recited is from Surah Baqarah, ayat number 215. An ayat which talks about the concept of infaq and spending in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a common element in our lives, a very basic element in our lives, something which is intuitive, something which we understand from the very beginning, every walks of life. There is some sort of giving away that which belongs to you. Now, of course, if it doesn't belong to you, then you don't have any right to give it. But the fact that it belongs to you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, similarly, the place where you live, it is your duty to go ahead and give and help out and support those who are less fortunate. Now, it's not giving a license to those who are less fortunate to live in the same state and continue to benefit from this welfare system, but it is there in order to keep this equality and balance in the society. Now, there are many benefits from it, and we all understand it to an extent because we all deal with our own economics, and we all deal with our own possessions, and we all, if someone has a bigger capital or investment, then you get an accountant to deal with all of those things. Similar to that, when that concept is understood and you have established it, that no matter where you live, you will be charged in order to be provided for. So the concept of taxation comes into play, that when you live in a society, in a country, in a state, in your city, there are certain things which are recommended for you, but there are certain charges which are in the form of tax, which there's no running away from, there's no evading it. In fact, evading it becomes what? It's illegitimate and it's criminal by law, and therefore there's a prosecution for that. Some people, who don't want to get into all that business, they deal with it, and whatever taxes that they have to pay, they happily, I don't want to use the word happily casually, but they pay it nonetheless because they don't really have any choice. Now, there are benefits that are associated with it. You get certain benefits that they tell you about, which you understand, and therefore it works out in the end for you. With that understanding, Islam, when it introduced its concept of taxation, it was easy to understand it. But we find still today that we find people that today who are still evading the Islamic taxes. While a person who has no choice but to be punctual when it comes to dealing with IRS and filing their taxes and paying their taxes on time, and throughout the year, the things that we pay as taxes on items that we purchase, we don't even realize it. When we swipe the card or we pay, that tax is already included in it. We don't even argue how much tax are you charging, because it's not up for argument. You buy something worth $1,000, you're going to be paying some taxes on it, $30, $40 worth of taxes on it. You won't even question why this $30, $40 extra charge on it, because it's understood. And if you did, people will not think that you understand the concept clearly. So we all have bought into giving and paying without even questioning, which is true because we understand the concept. But then when it comes to Islamic taxes, right away people start questioning. Right away there are, things that people are trying to find out to evade somehow, that I don't have to pay this, so that I can be, exempted from paying homes or zakat for that matter. A lot of times we get these sort of calls and questions. The people have certain investments and what do they do with it, and do they have to pay homes on it or not, and so on and so forth. We understand that when it comes to being dealt with in the court of law over here, we're all straight and we don't argue and we don't, protest. But when it comes to the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which will be held tomorrow, right away we are trying to evade it by questioning and poking these questions as to where is this wealth being used, how is it being utilized, how do I know that this money that I'm giving is going to be used properly, and so on and so forth. So when we understand this, we see that Islam and Quran especially tells us about this concept of infaq. It says in ayah number 215 of Surah Baqarah, they asked you as to what they should spend. Say, let whatever wealth you spend be for the parents, relatives, orphans, needy, and the traveler. Allah indeed knows whatever good you do. So all these people, according to the place where I live, I don't have to worry about paying to my parents, my relatives, orphans, needy, and traveler. These are a group of people that you're introducing to me who are outside of any sort of taxation that I am dealt with in this country or in this part of the world, for example. Well, that's where Islam comes in and tells you that what your moral duty is when it comes to your fellow, family members, whether it's in the form of your parents, whether it's in the form of your relatives, extended family, and in general, even if they're not related to you, if they are falling under the category of orphans and they fall under the category of needy and traveler who, might be affluent in their own hometown, but here they have become in need. So therefore, these are the people that you must spend for. So there are different types of infaq that are discussed. There's the wajib type, which is the khums, the zakat, the kafara, the fidya, and the nafaqah. Now, some of these you already know. For the explanation for our youngsters, khums is the 20% on your savings, annual savings. So whatever savings you have annually, 20% of that goes toward khums. So therefore, for example, you earn, let's say, hypothetically speaking, in the entire calendar year, $100,000. On top of that $100,000, after taking all of your expenses out, you had about $10,000 that left at the end of the year. From that 10,000, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stipulated 1/5. You do the math better than me. 2,000 out of the 10,000 will be liable for khums, and that's simple math. I oversimplified it. It could be different assets that you have and have to put together, but nonetheless, this is the simple math. So any type of savings, anything that is in excess which you did not use throughout the year, it will be liable for khums. That means you didn't need it. You had it, but you didn't need it. So therefore, you'll go ahead and pay khums. Now the remaining amount, which is the 8,000, that 4/5 chunk that is left, you will never be liable for khums again, as long as it remains that value. And it doesn't change, for example, in its monetary value. But if you spend it, there's new saving that comes about next year, you'll be paying 1/5 on that as well. Similarly, we have the concept of zakat. Although we are labeled as Shias don't pay zakat, but no, that's not true. If you deal in those 9 things which are mentioned in the books of fiqh about zakat, when it comes to the livestock, when it comes to the crops that are grown out of the ground, if you're a farmer, or if you're dealing in the gold and the silver coins, then there will be a tax which is called in the form of zakat, which is 2.5%. If it reaches that limit, 2.5%, which is basically nothing. Even I don't know what's the taxes here in the state of New Jersey are 7%, 6%, whatever the percentage is on things that you buy. So just compare that with what you have to pay, 2.5%. So that's zakat, which is again on a yearly basis. Kafara, we're going through the month of Ramadan, and we know that if we miss a fast, or not miss a fast, so let me rephrase, if we break a fast, or we don't have a legitimate excuse and we don't fast on certain days in the month of Ramadan, then it will be considered a sin, and there will be kafara upon us, and that kafara is to feed 60 people. Because the first kafara is to fast for 60 days. But if you weren't able to fast that one day, I don't think you'll be able to fast 60 in lieu of that one which you missed. So therefore, feeding 60 people probably is easier task. So feeding 60 people would equal to about $300, as some areas have different numbers, but this would be it. If one person requires $5 feeding, then it would be $300. So therefore, each kafara for each missed fast in a sense that you broke it or you didn't fast on purpose without a legitimate excuse, $300 would be the kafara. That is also what? Wajib infaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put it in the category of infaq, that it is basically going out to what? To give it to someone who can, further their own wealth? No, to give it to someone who's in need. Those who are less fortunate in the society, this kafara will go and fulfill their needs, and they will be fed with the money which is provided through this kafara. Fidya is the same way. A person who's unable to fast due to certain reasons, medical reasons, for example, or other things, by which old age they're unable, and it becomes a difficult thing for them to fast. So they will pay for each fast that they don't make. They won't have to do qada, but they'll pay fidya, which is about $5 per fast. So that is simple math. And again, this fidya is going to do what? It's going to go out and help those who are in need to feed them. And lastly, the nafaqah. Nafaqah is when a person who has family, it is obligatory upon them to provide food, clothing, and shelter to their spouse and for to their children. So that is called Urdu nafaqah, right? So that is something which is obligatory upon the male family member of the household to provide for their family. So this is as far as the wajib infaq is concerned. Now there are many mustahab things that you can give as far as infaq is concerned, such as sadaqah, the qarz to the needy, to the poor, to the destitute, and the gifts to friends, and so on and so forth. And believe it or not, there are certain things which are also makruh in this reference, and then some of them will be mubah. But you don't really find that there's any category for haram infaq. So that is something worth noticing. Best type of infaq, as the ayat of Surah Al Imran 92 says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ وَمَا تُنْفِقُوا مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِهِ عَلِيمٌ. You will never attain piety until you spend out of what you hold dear. And whatever you may spend of anything, Allah indeed knows it. So here the concept is being given where you should spend that which you would use for yourself at least. Not something which you have discarded already and it's to be thrown away. I'm not stopping you from giving those things out either. So the whole one said we can't give out the used stuff anymore. No, still give out the used stuff. There are like banks where you can give out clothes and old clothes and other things. Continue doing that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala draws our attention toward an important concept. He says, "Lan tanalul." You can give out that discarded stuff. You were going to get rid of it anyway. It was taking up space in your house. You had to get rid of it. You might as well someone uses it. Good. You get some out of it. But he said, this is not going to give you that high virtuous status. This is something which you basically have personal interest in getting rid of it. But that which gives you a higher rank, a virtue, or birr, as the ayat of Quran says, that you will never attain piety or the virtue until you spend and give that which you dearly love. So what you dearly love is something which you would have used for yourself. You would have bought for yourself. You would have kept for yourself. And that is giving a personified. That is something which is clearly something that should be given up. And we have numerous examples of that in the lives of Masumeen. For example, Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, walking with his servant Umar. There are different narrations of this. He buys two shirts. One is relatively new and expensive. The other one is, cheaper in quality. And so Umar thinks that he's Mawla. He bought one for himself, which is of good quality, and I'm the servant, so he bought one for me. This is still ihsan from my Mawla to me. They arrive at home, Imam gives him the expensive one and keeps the cheap one for himself. The lower quality. I don't want to use the word cheap. He uses the lower quality one for himself and gives the better quality one to Umar. Mawla, what's going on? I thought that one was for you. He said, no, you're younger. This better quality will look and suit you. And I'm older, so this will be enough for me because I don't need it to show it to anyone or to go about it. My business, which I do and deal with, this quality works for me. So you find in the example that now Imam goes out and keeps something which is lower quality for himself and gives something. Another example you find in the life of Janani Fatima Zahra Salamullahi alayha, that it is narrated, and it is that the night that she got married, the libas of her uruz that she had, she gave that libas in as a sadaqah. In fact, someone came and asked for something, she had nothing. She put on her old clothes and she gave away that libas, which was worth something because it was a wedding dress. Imagine the wedding dress and how much people spend on weddings and the dresses that they make for wedding and how much there's usage of it. It's probably used maybe once in their life, but there's so much that goes through with it. But to have the heart to go ahead and give it away, some people have a difficult time giving away so someone can use it for a while and then return it, let alone giving it away completely. And that's not just for the women, even for the men, because they also have some wedding dresses that they make for themselves. This, mutarras, sherwani, and whatnot. So this is where we see لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا. That wedding dress really was dearly to her. To any bride, that wedding dress is dear to them. But to give it away without any hesitation is what Quranic ayat is telling us over here. So the word bir is broader than khair and barakat, because the land which is ready for farming and irrigation and agriculture is called bir, keeping in mind how it will spread and it will produce. So when you give something like this, it is beyond khair and barakat, because the way this land, which is called bir, it produces and it's ready for farming, it will go ahead and provide for countless people. This will also do the same thing. And there are examples of people even outside of the realm of infallibility. So when you give examples of masumi, no, there are people who are other than masum who have done tremendous amount of infaq in their lives. One of the examples of infaq from Mu'mineen is Abu Talha al-Ansari. He owned most of the palm trees which actually produced the dates. So you go to Medina and you find different types of dates over there, and one of the best ones that they mention is ajwa, and because Rasulullah was extra care for that date, and he used to eat it himself and dua of it and whatnot. It has cure in it for us. So Abu Talha Ansari used to own majority of and most of the palm trees in all of Medina, and also owned a huge and beautiful garden which had enormous income. This garden was located right in front of Masjid-e-Ali. Prophet used to enter through this garden, drink water from it, from the fountain that was therein. When the verse "Lan tanalul birra" was revealed, when this verse was revealed, Abu Talha Ansari came to Rasulullah and said, "The most beloved thing I possess is this garden. I want to spend it in the way of Allah, so that I am counted amongst those whom this ayah is referring to, that you will never attain this virtue and taqwa until you spend part of what you dearly love." Prophet replied, "It is a good transaction, but I suggest that you give this to the poor and needy within your family." He accepted it and divided it between them. Look at the story, or first of all, his altruism, Isa, that he wants to give it away. But also says, give, which is a good thing. I don't want to stop you from giving. But give in this way. He guided him. He said, give this to the family and the relatives. He preferred the family members and the relatives of Abu Talha Ansari over rest of the inhabitants of Medina. It's better that you give it to your family than you give it to someone who's strange to you. Now, this concept might not make sense when you just look at it on the basis of this dua, on the story. But in fact, there's a hadith which backs up this concept. There's a riwayat that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that when he ascended to the paradise, or when he ascended to the heavens, when the Mi'raj of Rasulullah took place. So when I arrived over there, I saw that there were 3 lines that were written on the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the throne of Allah, Arsh-e-Ali, and there were 3 lines that were written. Wouldn't you want to know what's written on Arsh-e-Ali? The only person who's seen it himself firsthand will be able to give us that information. So Rasulullah, we believe that he saw it, so he's telling us that. He says what? He said, As-Satrul Awwal, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Anallahu, La ilaha illa ana, Sabaqat Rahmati Ghadabi. First line reads, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, there's no God except me, and my rahmat exceeds my ghadab. That's the first line. Now, I don't have time to go in the depths of this because this is not the example that we're looking for. The second line read this. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As-sadaqatu bi-asharatin wal-qardu bi-thamaniyati ashar wa silatu rahim bi-thalathin. The second line after that first line on Arsh-e-Ilahi is written as this. It says, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Sadaqah has 10-fold reward, Qarz has 18-fold reward, and Sila Rahim has 30-fold reward. I'll come back to this. But Satr al-Thalith in the third line says, Man arafa qadari wa rububiyyati fala yattahimni firraz. Whoever recognizes my value, my qadar, my decree and my command, and my rububiyyat, and me being their Lord and their nurturer and the provider, fala yattahimni firraz, will never, do ittiham or tuhmat, will never slander me or have a doubt as far as providing the sustenance is concerned. These are the three lines that Rasulullah said when he saw were written on Arsh-e-Ilahi. Now there are other riwayat which talk about other things also written, but this is what Rasulullah, and this is our example, inshallah I'll conclude with it. Second line, what does it say? You get 10-fold reward for sadaqah. You get 18 reward for qarz. Qarz is that you give it to someone with the intention of return, taking it back. Right? So I loan someone money for a year with intention that will give me back. The Bible says sadaqah is 10. This loan, which will be returned, is 18. What's the difference? Well, we thought sadaqah was on top. Sadaqah does this, sadaqah does that, sadaqah takes, unfortunate death away, sadaqah prolongs your life, sadaqah breaks the back of shaitan, sadaqah, all that stuff. And sadaqah only has 10 reward. And in fact, giving loan to someone has more reward than sadaqah. Yes, the understanding is when you give sadaqah, you don't know who's the recipient, and if the recipient is definitely in need or not. So therefore, there's 10 reward associated with it. But when you give qarz, you know the person whom you're giving this qarz, that person is definitely in need. And when that person is definitely in need, you're fulfilling a genuine need and a needy person. So there's more reward for that. And third, Rasulullah said that it was written on Arsh-e-Ilahi, وَصِلَةُ الرَّحِيمِ بِالثَّلَاثِينِ. And when you spend on your family, on your relatives, salatin, you get 30-fold reward for them. So what's the difference between this and qarz? Well, qarz, you're going to be returning, getting back. And it's known that the person who's taking it is someone who's in need. When you give it to your family without requesting them to return it, you know that they are also in need. This is where the balance of sadaqah becomes 3 times. Sadaqah was given to someone who was probably in need, maybe not in need, but you did not know who it was. Here you're doing silatul rahim and providing it to your family members and your relatives, and there's 30-fold reward associated with it. From this, we understand the story of Abu Talha Ansari, that Rasulullah said, it is good that you want to give, but give it to your family to be able to maximize the returns, right? All of us looking for the return in this now, inshallah, moreover, we're looking for the returns in the hereafter. If you want best of the return of your investment, then go ahead and give it to your family and give it to your relatives. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the tawfiq and ability to ponder over this concept of giving, especially during this month of Ramadan, and giving especially to our family members, our relatives, those who are blood relatives to us. They are given preference in all areas over other individuals. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to extend the reappearance of our great Imam in Hasan Hadith. وأبلغ الموعد كتاب الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم سبحان من سبقت رحمته وذكر وبسط اليدين بالرحمة سبحان من لم يكلف نفسا إلا دون وسعها ووقع عن السيئات ولم يجاهد بها سبحان من لا يزداد على عسر ما ذكره مجهودا ولا كفت الذنوب إلا فهو سبحان نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو أطوف على العباد بجوده ولقاد المؤمنين بعلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وشفيع المسلمين بعثه رحمة للعالمين ألا قد أمركم الله في محكم كتابه بالصلاة على نبيه وحبيبه فقال تعليما لكم وتشريفا لصفيه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المسلمين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى إمام المسلمين وقائد الغر المحجلين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى سيدنا النساء العالمين وبرة خاتم النبيين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليه وعلى ناصر المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب الزمان ماهي آثار البر والطغيان هادم أبنة الشرك والنفاق حاسد الكفر والبغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام ما اتصلت الليالي والأيام اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا واكحل نظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه وتفضل على فرائض المؤمنين بمزيد التوفيقات وازدياد الإحسان والعلو بالدرجات اللهم افعل بنا ما أنت أهل ولا تفعل بنا ما نحن أهله بجاه محمد وآله المعصومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين اللهم اجعلنا ممن يذكر فتنفعه الذكر ان الله يامر بالعدل والاحسان وايتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون